Oh my goodness, I can't believe I said Michael J. Borden. Michael J. Borden. Michael B. Jordan. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hello, friends. It's Loma here, otherwise known as LomaLicious, Lomita, or MoMo, and my grandson calls me Momo, and you can call me Momo too. You know why? I'm a proud grandma, and I name my show Call Me Momo. Let's get to business. Today is day 11 of my Black History Month project of 28 movies in 28 days. I've been celebrating it from the day I was born, and I will be celebrating it until the day I die. Although there's a bit of bumps in the road along the way, but you know what? We'll get into that another time. Those are some other discussions. Right now, I'm just working on my project of watching movies I've seen, movies I haven't seen, movies I want to share with you, and things that a lot of these, almost every single movie makes some sort of impact, because a lot of these movies, they can be old films, but they are exactly the same stories that we are still hearing today, and the stories that we need to fight, and because they should not be happening to this day, and unfortunately they still are. And that is why we are having these conversations, and why we must continue to have these conversations. Okay, let's get to business. I don't want to bore you too much. So today's movie is Just Mercy. It was directed by, I think his name is Destin Daniel Cretton. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his last name. Michael J. Borden. This movie is based on a true story, as a lot of the movies we're going to be seeing and talking about, but this movie is based on a true story of a man named Walter McMillian who went to jail for a crime he didn't commit. He spent, I believe it was 6 years on death row. Okay, I'm just going to name a few people in the movie. So we have Jamie Foxx starring as Walter McMillian, and his performance, oh, I'm telling you.
These fools gonna do what they gonna do.
Don't you? No, come on.
But if they take me to that chair tonight, I'm going out smiling, cause I got my truth back.
Oscars. So, Jamie Foxx plays the main person the story is about, Walter McMillian, who was charged of murder. He was actually sent to death row before his trial even happened, like before he even had a trial. Okay, that's just how sad it is. So the other thing is, so sorry, but my tea always gets cold because I need to start like drinking. The story Just Mercy was actually based on a book written by the lawyer of this case, and his name is Bryan Stevenson. And I remember learning about him when I watched The 13th, and I didn't realize that he was the lawyer for this movie until my wonderful sister-in-law pointed it out, that it's based. The lawyer is that same lawyer, and I wanted to learn more about him. He started the Equal Justice Initiative, and you see that in the film. And when he goes to defend Walter, he's a young, motivated, optimistic lawyer, and he comes to face the harsh realities of the South, and how these are modern day lynchings, literally the death penalty, and especially in places like Alabama. So this is set in Alabama, and the 80s, there's not much change there, and there's still not much change to this day. So looking into these stories, so the actor Rob Morgan plays Herbert Richardson, which is the actor who he is a Vietnam vet, and he suffers PTSD, and it's such a sad thing. And you know what? He did commit the crime that he is on death row for, but there's so much more to the story. And honestly, I don't think death row should have been it. I think the thing is, he was ignored by the healthcare system, for vets and for a lot of vets. And this still happens to this day. They don't get the supports that they need to deal with the mental illnesses that come along with being in a war, seeing death. You know, we're not born to murder or kill. It's not, you know, in our nature. I mean, some people would say different, you know, some serial killers out there, but it's really not in our nature to kill. So when we have to do these things in war and when we witness it, it is a horrible thing. I could not imagine. I've never been in war, you know, although they say in the pandemic we are fighting a war, but the war we're fighting and what we're doing is just staying on our sofa. Michael J. Which you see a lot of those memes. So anyway, the thing is, vets do need supports. They especially need help with dealing with their PTSD. So he did do the crime that he was charged of, but I don't think that is the answer, the death penalty, and that was a really sad story. And just to see that there are people who need help rather than prison, and the crime he committed could have been avoided if he had just gotten the help he needed before that, because he was known to sleepwalk, and because of the trauma, and known to do things violent without being aware of himself, right? So anyway, then O'Shea Jackson plays Anthony Ray Hinton, which was a gentleman who stayed in prison for 30 years for a crime he did on death row for 30 years. So he was in prison for 30 years, 28 years of the 30-year sentence he was on death row. And the same lawyer, Bryan Stevenson, had actually worked on his case and set him free, was the one to set him free 30 years later. He was put in jail because the officer said, "You look guilty." So imagine somebody saying to you, "You look guilty," and you're on death row for 28 years and in prison for 30 years for a crime you did not commit. I don't know the full story.
Prosecution seemed deemed to take my life from me.
Oh my goodness. So this is the
You can say that you got an innocent man off death row.
I'm so glad that he is free today. Brie Larson plays Eva Ansley. So she's the co-founder along with Bryan Stevenson for the Equal Justice Initiative, and that they still have running today. I don't remember how many people they've freed since, but definitely over 100 people they have freed from prison that have been wrongfully convicted. If you think about all the people who were innocent, I bet you if there were more people working cases like this, you would see even a higher number of people who are innocent. You know, I am a guilty person to always think that if they were charged or if they were convicted, they must be guilty of the crime. You know, you have that faith and belief that there's no way that they would put someone innocent in prison. It's been, wow, it is, yeah. So this is very eye-opening when I'm watching all these things. I follow the Innocence Project, and I've been following that for a long time. And just seeing some of the stories, man, they bring tears to my eyes. So, okay, now let's get to, the other person I have to say does such a phenomenal job. I don't remember his name right now. Oh, I thought I wrote it down. So it was the gentleman who plays Tim Blake Nelson. So he plays the man who actually gave the false testimony to convict Walter McMillian.
That one person is Ralph Myers, a career criminal who's now doing 30 years for another murder. Myers testified he was in Johnny D's pickup truck outside the cleaners when McMillian went in to rob the store.
Some point you heard gunshots.
Right.
When you went inside, what did you tell them you saw?
I told them that I had seen a young girl laying on the floor with her mouth open.
Dead. And what was he doing?
Taking money from out of a paper sack, put it into a briefcase.
Did he have a gun?
Yeah, I had told the court that, yeah.
Now, that testimony put him on death row.
Right.
Was it true?
No, sir, not at all. Nowhere near true.
So why did Ralph Myers testify against McMillian? At the time, he was awaiting trial and facing a possible death sentence for murder. He says an Alabama Bureau of Investigation agent used that to pressure him to lie about McMillian.
So he tells me, he says, well, all you got to do is you go along with what we want you to go along with, and And he says, I promise you, he said, I've done got it fixed with the DA, I've done got it fixed with the judge, and you won't get but 30 years.
So 30 years, and you'd be eligible for parole after?
Well, more or less probably like 10.
So you're looking at 10 years versus the electric chair.
Right.
Why should anyone believe you now when you're taking back what you said at the trial under oath?
Well, it's like this. I don't know the words for that, but I can tell you this much. Right is right, and wrong is wrong. And for a man to straighten his own life out, he must tell the truth. He must try to do what is right, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Wow. Can I say, this movie, I have to be honest with you, I had my doubts about this movie. I was like, oh, it's just going to be another Hollywood thing, and going to be over dramatized and all these dramatic scenes that didn't really happen, and just to make it exciting for Hollywood. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. And okay, so before I get into my rating for it, but the trailer is it feels that the movie's going to be so intense, but guess what? The intensity isn't by the outbursts that we did see with the sun. So I would say that is probably one of the only outbursts. It seems like it's going to be this action-filled. No. And what was really pleasantly surprising about it was calm. And you can feel the rage without seeing the rage. You feel it. You feel when Jamie Foxx, you know, even in that scene in court, you feel how angry he is inside when the judge makes his ruling. But yet he doesn't utter a word, really, except to tell his son to sit down. So the acting in this movie was phenomenal. Just the way they were telling the stories with the inmates and their interactions, and so great. Okay, and so I had my doubts. I really thought it was going to be Hollywood, and I had my doubts. So Walter McMillian was not, he had so many witnesses to say that he was not where they say he was when apparently he committed this crime. So anyway, this movie was so much better than I was expecting. I'm so glad it didn't have too much of the Hollywood, the extra drama they try to add in. It was very toned down, but you could feel, like, sometimes Jamie Foxx did not even say a word, and you felt that emotion inside him. You could feel it, or sometimes he would even whisper his lines, and you could feel that pain. It's just, we need to really, 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 really fight against this injustice, and these are modern day lynchings committed to me, but still happening today with people in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Because I just can't imagine how many people have been executed and murdered who were innocent of the crime they were charged with. So I just can't imagine what people go through when they are pulled over. They fear for their lives, and they could literally come out of being pulled over from running a stop sign to being dead. And all the officer needs to say is, they came at me. They charged at me. I thought he was pulling for a weapon. Take notice that start believing that these things happen. So anyway, I know this wasn't that much of a fun one, Michael J. Jordan, but it was a good movie, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so have a good night, my friends, and we'll see you tomorrow.